Okay, before we jump in, let's get one really important thing out of the way. Everything we're about to cover is for informational purposes only. This is not medical advice. So please, for any decisions about your health, always consult with a qualified healthcare provider.
All right, let's get into it. Today, we're talking about a feeling that might just hit a little too close to home, especially if you're over 35. You know the one. That deep, bone-tired feeling that a good night's sleep just can't seem to touch. Well, we're going to dig into the real science of why that happens.
So where does this all stem from? Well, at its very core, it's something we can call a cellular energy crisis. And it's this quiet problem that starts deep inside your cells, probably long before you start feeling that daily drag.
So let me ask you this. If you're somewhere in that 35 to 55 window, does this sound about right? You get your 8 hours, you really do, but you wake up feeling like you barely slept. And that afternoon slump? It's less of a slump and more like you've just hit a brick wall. If you're nodding your head right now, trust me, you are in very good company.
And here's the thing I really need you to hear. This isn't a character flaw. This has nothing to do with being lazy. And yeah, stress doesn't help, but it's not the root of the problem. The issue is biological. For this explainer, let's think of it like this. Your body's cells are all running on tiny little power plants. And as we get older, those power plants just start to break down.
So what exactly are these cellular power plants? Well, it's time to meet the star of our show today, your mitochondria.
Inside pretty much every single cell in your body, you've got these incredible little bean-shaped structures. Their main job? To take the food you eat and the air you breathe and convert them into a molecule called ATP. Now, ATP is basically the energy currency for your body. I mean, everything, from thinking a thought to blinking your eyes, it's all paid for with ATP.
The scientific name for this process is a mouthful, but what it does is amazing. It's like this microscopic factory line that's so efficient, it generates over 95% of the energy your body uses for, everything. When this system is humming along, you feel fantastic. But what happens when it starts to slow down?
Well, the science is pretty clear on this. There's a 2016 paper on aging that states it plainly. Human aging starts after the third decade. Yep, that means your 30s. And this isn't just about wrinkles or gray hair, it's happening at a much deeper level. A huge piece of this puzzle is the decline in how well our mitochondria work.
Let's go back to our factory analogy, because it's perfect here. In a young cell, the mitochondria are like a power grid of clean, super efficient factories. But as the cell gets older, some of those factories are basically broken down smoke-belching machines. They're producing less energy and way more toxic waste. And here's the kicker. The cleanup crew that's supposed to haul away the broken machines, it's just not working as hard anymore.
This cleanup process actually has a name. It's called mitophagy. It's your body's built-in quality control system for your power plants. As soon as one starts to fail, special proteins swoop in and slap a "for removal" tag on it. Then the cell breaks it down and recycles the parts. It's a genius system for keeping your energy grid running clean. But you guessed it, as we age, the whole process gets sluggish.
Okay, so if the cleanup crew gets lazy with age, what can we do? This is where the science gets really fascinating, and it brings us to something called the Urolithin A paradox.
So what on earth is Urolithin A? It's a postbiotic. All that means is it's a compound made by your gut bacteria when they digest certain other things. You can't just eat Urolithin A in a piece of fruit. Your gut has to manufacture it from precursors found in foods like pomegranates and walnuts. And here's the cool part. Clinical trials are showing that it can actually wake up that sleepy mitochondria cleanup crew.
But here's the catch, the big paradox. Research is showing that only about 40% of us have the right kind of gut bacteria to make this happen efficiently. That means for the majority of people, a full 60%, you could eat pomegranates all day long and you still wouldn't produce meaningful amounts of Urolithin A. Your gut just isn't equipped for the job. It's a total biological bottleneck.
So how do you get around this gut lottery? Well, the research points to a pretty straightforward solution: direct supplementation. If you take Urolithin A directly, you just bypass that whole conversion step entirely. It means you can get the levels that were used in the clinical studies no matter what kind of microbiome you're working with.
So what does the research say actually happens when you give that cleanup crew a kickstart? Let's take a closer look at what the studies found.
When you look at the human trials, you see a pretty consistent pattern. The dosages they used were typically between 500 and 1,000 milligrams a day. And the mechanism is just fascinating. It essentially sends a signal to your cells to fire up that mitophagy process again. And the result? The old, broken power plants get cleared out,
which makes room for new, efficient ones to be built.
Now, I have to be really, really clear about this because it's so important for setting expectations. This is not a stimulant. It's not like a cup of coffee. You're not going to feel a jolt of energy an hour later. Think of it more like you're starting a major renovation project on your cellular power grid. It is a slow, gradual rebuilding process that, according to the studies, can take anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks to see measurable results.
And of course, anytime we talk about any kind of supplement, we have to talk about safety. This part is absolutely non-negotiable.
First, the good news. Urolithin A has what's called generally recognized as safe status from the FDA. In the studies, side effects were pretty minimal, mostly just some mild digestive upset. However, and this is a big however, there are potential drug interactions. It could interfere with meds that are processed by the liver, so you absolutely have to talk to your doctor if you're on blood thinners, diabetes meds, or immunosuppressants. And since its safety during pregnancy hasn't been studied, it should be avoided.
You know, even the Federal Trade Commission has guidance on this stuff. They basically say that if a supplement uses the same pathways in the body as a prescription drug, there could be a problem. This just hammers home the golden rule of smart supplementation. You have to talk to your doctor first. No exceptions.
And we also have to say, of course, that individual results are going to vary from person to person. The information we've gone over today has not been evaluated by the FDA, and it is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
The bottom line really couldn't be simpler. Talk to your healthcare provider before making any decisions that affect your health. They know your personal health history, and they can give you advice that's right for you. Period.
So let's end with this one final thought. For decades, we've known the pillars of good health, right? Diet and exercise. And those are and always will be the foundation. But as our understanding of biology gets more and more sophisticated, it raises a really interesting question. Is proactively managing the health of our cells, our tiny power plants, the next great frontier in aging well? It's definitely something to think about.